All right, this video is all about programming. I had a question, actually a couple questions about how I program, and I wanted to lay this out so you have a better understanding about where I'm thinking, what I'm thinking about as I program for each month. And I do that. I program for each month at the beginning of the month so that we are practicing certain skills throughout the month. And for me, it's about how can I individualize things for a group. And that's a somewhat hard task to accomplish when you have people at various levels and skill sets. That's why we have options within our group training, and I want to explain that a little bit more, but I want to explain what I'm thinking about and how I'm thinking about things so that you have a better idea as you're going into class. Well, what should I be doing? What should I be focusing on? And hopefully this helps you out. So first and foremost, there's fundamental movement patterns that we want to make sure we're working every single training session, every single month, every single week. And those are the hinge, squat, push, pull, and carry exercises. Now there's a couple other smaller ones, but those aren't going to be the big patterns. These are going to be the big patterns that we're going to work. They are the patterns that are going to allow you to get the strongest, and they work multiple joints, so you burn more calories, you're functionally stronger, and they're compound exercises. So the hip hinge, some simple exercises that we train within class, exercise examples would be the kettlebell deadlift. I'll just abbreviate this, the kettlebell deadlift, kettlebell swing, trap bar deadlift, anything that's hinging at the hips. So next we have squats. We have so many different squat variations. We have goblet squats, we have front squats, we have lunging patterns. Okay, those are all exercise examples, step-ups within the squat pattern. Then we have push, and push can be subdivided into two different categories. It could be horizontal push, and it can be vertical push. So push-ups, floor presses, anything overhead press. Those are all examples of push exercises. Then we have pull. Again, you can subdivide this into horizontal pull and vertical pull. So any type of rows that we do within class, and any type of vertical pull down like chin-ups, pull-up variations. We'll say pull, chin variations. And then finally we have carrying exercises. So farmer carries, single arm suitcase carries, rack carries, overhead carries. These are all patterns that need to be worked. So farmer, rack, and overhead. We'll just, my marker's running out. Okay. And we're going to make sure that we're working those patterns. Now in each exercise, we might emphasize certain patterns more for strength versus the other ones, which we'll get into right now. But the big thing here is that if we're looking at strength lifts and the class is designed to get strong, okay, this isn't a high intensity interval class, this is a strength class. And the reason why we do strength class is because most people just don't spend enough time getting strong and improving upon their imbalances and weaknesses. So my class is designed to get you strong, okay? Now, to get strong, we want to emphasize certain lifts within class. And for the hip hinge category, the big strength lifts are going to be trap bar deadlifts, barbell deadlifts. You know, we don't do barbell deadlifting because I don't think folks are there yet. We can get so much out of the trap bar right now, but we can get to the barbell down the road. There's certain standards that we want to hit, and that will be in another video for you. But we want to have a continuum of progression, and trap bar is going to be the big lift that we're hitting for the hip hinge. For the squat, the big lift is going to be double kettlebell front squats, any type of barbell front squats, which we're not doing a lot of, and then any type of back squats, barbell back squats. Those are going to be the big strength lifts that we're going to hit. Again, there's progression that we want to hit before we get to the barbell, and that just takes time. So moving on to the upper body push, kettlebell overhead presses are the big strength lift, barbell overhead presses are the big strength lift, and then when you get over here to horizontal pushing, any type of bench presses. So we've been doing dumbbell floor bench presses. Those are all going to be heavy strength lifts. In the pull, well, the big one in the pull is going to be bent over rows. If we start getting into barbell, kettlebell bent over rows, that requires a lot of upper body tension and back strength to do those rows. So that's going to be a big lift here. And then any type of vertical pulling. If we can get to pull-ups, chin-ups, those are a big, massive strength lift. And then down here on the carries, any type of farmer carries, rack carries require a lot of effort, a lot of full body tension and strength. So those are our big carries. Now you'll notice with these strength lifts, this is what we practice in most classes. And the reason being is because we want to continually get strong within these lifts. There's plenty of variation within these lifts that we can do. We can barbell, dumbbell, kettlebell, we can adjust those within the lifts. But where the big strength stuff within the lifts, the variation is going to be is the rep ranges. And there's certain rep ranges that we want to hit within class, and we try to hit all those rep ranges to some degree. Now, if you're really trying to get strong, strength is going to live here in the 1 to 6 rep range. This just means your intensity, your load, your resistance is really high and your reps are low. So you're going to get really strong focusing on this. This also means that your rest times are going to be longer. So if you're doing some of these big lifts like the squat and the deadlift, you're going to be somewhere around 2.5 to 3 minutes of rest so that we can let your nervous system regenerate, okay? Because it takes a lot out of you. Now, the hypertrophy is the 8 to 12 rep range. This is kind of like more muscle building, size building. This is going to be somewhere around the 8 to 12 rep range. This is not exact science, but it's roughly within there. And you'll notice in some of these exercises, we're hitting these higher rep ranges, okay? And then finally, you have muscular endurance. That's going to be somewhere around 15 plus reps, depending on the person. That's where you're going to get more into muscular endurance. Example of this would be us hitting a lot of those glute bridges for the 20 plus rep range area. It becomes very taxing. You're not using very much load at all, and you kind of get that burn. The important thing is that within all of your training sessions and all of your weeks, we're varying the loads and the intensities using these different rep ranges. That's why you'll see in the first part where we're doing the main lifts, you'll have lower repetitions, and then the next sequence of exercises will have a little bit higher repetitions. And so we can adjust these variables within session, and that's what I try to do each month. 1 month we did some really high rep range stuff where it was my hypertrophy, and the next month we jumped back down. So we can adjust, maybe it's the 2 to 4 rep range, the 4 to 6 rep range. If you're going to that intensity and working really hard, that's going to be a big difference. Doing 2 reps is much different than doing 6 reps with different weights, okay? Now finally we have over here is symmetry. After we've done these big lifts, now we can train for symmetry. And sometimes we train them together, but that's why you'll see like any type of single leg patterns, single arm patterns are going to be about bringing more symmetry from side to side in your strength, in terms of your strength. So for the hip hinge over here, we have kickstand and single leg deadlift variations. We also have single leg glute bridges, bridging variations, but that's going going to be the symmetry aspect of it, and you certainly can get really, really strong with that. Squat, any type of lunging, step up, split squat, rear foot elevated split squat is going to be about building symmetry in that lower body in terms of the squat pattern. Upper body push, you have any type of one arm presses, one arm floor presses, shoulder tap positions, just maintaining that single arm position. Those are all going to be variations to build symmetry in the push pattern. In the pull pattern, any type of one arm rowing, one arm pull downs, those are all going to be one arm symmetry variations for the pull pattern. And then finally, loaded carries. So carrying stuff in one arm, overhead, rack, suitcase, those are all going to be symmetries for symmetry exercises for the carry variations. Okay? So when we put this all together, we get a cohesive training program that's identifying weaknesses, attacking different loads, different volumes, different rep ranges, and as you're going through the month, you're increasing the intensity each week because, well, if you're showing up regularly, you're seeing the same exercises for that month, and the intensity is going to increase, okay? So the main lifts, there's not going to be a lot of change within those because of the main lifts, and that's how we get strong. The big variation is going to be in the rep ranges and then also symmetry exercises. And that's why we're tracking this stuff, and we're just trying to improve upon our weaknesses each month, and we're trying to adjust on those variations and make sure that we're individualizing as much as possible. Now, I'll get into the continuum and the kind of roadmap that we're hitting or we're trying to hit for each person individually. But what's important here where the individualization comes in is since everybody's at a different level, somebody might be focusing more so on building just their pattern quality with some of these easier exercises, like just goblet squats or just kettlebell deadlifts. And I say easy because it's a relative term, you know. For some person it's going to be harder, for the other person it's going to be easier. It's wherever you are in your journey on that. But you're building up to some of these more complex exercises, and it's not about getting here as fast as possible. It's about getting here safely and effectively because we're all starting at a different place. And it's important to own where you're at, start where you are, and build up from there and make sure that you're hammering really good quality on all these exercises so that when you get to these more complex exercises, the bridge to that is so much easier because you've done all the groundwork, laid all that groundwork in terms of strength to make sure that you're doing all these things safely and effectively. So that is how I think about programming. If you have any questions specifically about programming, please ask me. I'd love to talk about this stuff. It's fun for me, and I'd love to explain anything else in further depth if you need it.